Hello, everyone. Today I'm basing this video on Boeing working with DOJ on revised plea deal in the 737 MAX fraud case, CEO Kelly Ortberg says. Now, I was there this past week listening to Chairman Cruz, Ted Cruz, question along with Senator Cantwell, and one thing led to another. Needless to say, Cruz got me out of there. His guards didn't listen to him. There was no command there. There's no general per se. But I want to get into this because I said in the meeting after he got done talking about, I knew it was bad when he was talking about how the Army was given 72 hours or so to write a letter back explaining the airplane and the helicopter over the Potomac. Now, that went the way of the wind. And 5 days later, he still hasn't received a response. Another thing about respect of the person in power. He said, when he got done with that, I said, Mr. Chairman, I am a shareholder of Boeing, and did you receive this booklet, which I made and I sent out to him on Monday of last week? He said, order, or I'll throw you out. And the guards came over and said, we got to take you. I said, whoa. He said, order, I'll throw you out. So they walked me out. And several senators who were there and their aides basically apologized to me. But this video today, the title is One and Done. Kelly Ortberg, Daryl Guberman, the Boeing DOJ cover-up that shattered American trust. And the subtitle to it is How the FAA Self-Certification, Federal Collusion, and Fraudulent Accreditation Bodies Enable the Deaths of 346 Innocents and Why Justice May Never Fly. Also, those of you who have those lawyers with Ethiopian Air, Indonesian Air, and Alaska Air, and all the rest of this stuff, remember this too. ANSI and ANAP work with the American Bar Association, and the DOJ sits on ANSI ANAP's board, not just as a member, but as a customer. We'll get right into it. In the wake of breaking news that Boeing is working with the Department of Justice on a revised plea deal in the 737 MAX fraud case, Daryl Guberman, truthsayer and 40-year quality assurance expert, breaks his silence on a multi-layered scandal that connects the highest levels of American aviation oversight and corporate deception. This isn't just about a faulty system. This is about how a broken system was built intentionally. The accreditation cartel, ANSI, ANAP, IAF, and ILAC. At the heart of the scandal is the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, and the American National Credit Board, ANAP. The quiet underwriters of the entire American quality and certification infrastructure. ANSI and ANAP are not just players, they are founding members of the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware, a global consortium of accreditation bodies with ANSI and ANAP being mutually recognized as equivalent to all the national bodies within the scheme. Their global twin is the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, headquartered in Australia, which further cements accreditation equivalency across the borders. Masking accountability under a blanket of international compliance. But here's the real kicker, ladies and gentlemen. ANSI and ANAP are home to multiple U.S. federal agencies that should be regulating, not colluding on ANSI-ANAP boards. You'll find that the DOJ, FDA, DHS, and Department of Commerce via NIST. This isn't collaboration. This is regulatory capture dressed as cooperation. DOJ's conflict of interest, justice denied. Let's focus on the DOJ, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? They sit as a paying customer on ANSI ANAP, and we have the 990 tax forms to prove it. Yes, I do. If the DOJ is paying to sit on the table of a private, not-for-profit accreditation entity, while also determining criminal outcomes for those it certifies, can the public ever expect true justice? This gets even more extensive when you have federal employees from the DHS and NIST, who are not just members of ANSI-ANAP, they are paid separately by these organizations while collecting federal salaries. The DHS official who received $262,000 and the NIST representative getting paid $120,000 plus their federal salary. This potentially violates 18 Code 209, salary of government officials from private sources, 31 U.S. Code 1342, limitation on voluntary services, and 5 CFR 2635.502, personal and business relationships that impair objectivity. The FAA and Boeing, regulator or regulated. In 2009, the FAA delegated authority to Boeing, granting them the power to self-certify their own aircraft, not just inspections, but the entire technological system, including the MCAS system, New Aircraft Technologies, a maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, the very software that led to 346 deaths aboard the Ethiopian Airlines and Lion Air. Boeing also installed its own employees as FAA designated inspectors paid directly by Boeing. That's what the FAA did. They made a /Boeing and FAA inspector. Thus, fusion created a disturbing reality. The CEO of Boeing acted as a de facto FAA administrator with the power to approve what should be federally certified. Yet major media outlets will never reveal this seismic truth. The FAA in this arrangement was a shadow of regulation captured from within. The AS9100 deception, Boeing's 2-decade lie, and it was, and is. Now, the final crescendo. For over 20 years, Boeing was not AS9100 certified, the very aerospace quality standard it mandated for all its suppliers since 2002. These mandates were enforced through the OASIS database, the online aerospace supplier information systems controlled by the International Aerospace Quality Group, which is also a member on ANSI-ANAB's board, which unsurprisingly was also under Boeing's control at the time. Supplier bulletins from April and July 2002 demanded new certificates, new parts, on-site visits if the need arises or if the need be. Special processes like welding and heat treatment were reclassified to remove redundancy, a quality term that I call offensive, when applied to a passenger aircraft carrying hundreds of 35,000 feet. In October of 2023, ANSI and ANAB issued Heads Up 22 mandating AS9100 certification be tied directly to OASIS and accredited only by ANSI-ANAB, third-party registrars, were also required to be ANSI-ANAB sanctioned. The audit system was no longer independent. It was a private club with no escape. On August 2024, after decades of fraudulent oversight, did Boeing begin the process of getting their own AS9100 certification, likely again through ANSI and ANAB, a certification fraudulent at best and meaningless piece of paper at worst, as echoed by countless suppliers who told Guberman, "You pay to play." Final thoughts, a paper shield, a silent sky. When the very institutions meant to regulate safety become clients of the companies they regulate, when federal officials receive private stipends from nonprofits that dictate quality, when justice is sold for influence and certification becomes currency, the question is no longer, how did this happen? The question is, how do we stop it now? I, as a truth-sayer, who've risked reputations to expose, and character, of course, to expose this deeply embedded corruption, stand on the front line of truth, but truth without action is just wind in a hollow fuselage. This is not just a crisis in aviation. It is a collapse of integrity in the American regulatory system. One and done, and that is it. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I'm going to be going on to another one similar in construct to what I just read. But yes, the DOJ is fraudulent. They're still members on ANSI-ANAB's board. They're still dictating about Boeing lying to the FAA. And as you can see, it's a scam, all of it, the whole 9 yards. And if Boeing attains an AS9100 through ANSI-ANAB or any of its equivalents on IAF or ILAC, then that piece of paper is no more than a frauded. It's a fraud, all of it. 203-556-1493.